I will leave the floor to our keynote speaker, Bożena, that can share screen. Bożena is a professor at the University of Economics in Wrocław. Her research focuses on green economy, sustainable development, climate change, and energy transformation, and green finance. She's the author of the book Green Economy, the concept and measurement of its implementation in European Union countries. And currently she's the project leader in the EU program Horizon 2020 Energy Communities EC Square, so energy communities and energy citizenship for the clean energy transition, where co-creation and citizen in energy transition is emphasized. Bożena, I will leave the floor to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm really happy to be able to talk to you about the co-creation. I think the concept of co-creation is quite well known already, especially for the practitioners of the energy transition. But I would like to emphasize a few discoveries we have from our project, and maybe it will give you a new kind of like light for your knowledge and awareness about the co-creation. From my point of view, the co-creation is somehow new concept in the social life. I mean, in municipalities, in projects like energy transition, because the co-creation was till now the tool which was used by business. You know, so business use the co-creation to cooperate with the users, with consumers, and they extra free of charge added value of this co-creation with clients. But the co-creation on the social level, on the level of municipalities, our cities, our social project, public project, is not very well, I mean, implemented. Because the co-creation, as you know, is the highest level of the participation and the public consultation and so on. So still we exercise in our communities, in our municipalities, we exercise a public consultation. We invite people to participate in different projects. But co-creation is the highest, I mean, stage of this process, and this is not easily acceptable. So what we discover in our project in the EC Square is that generally we have, because the topic of our project is the energy citizenship and energy communities, so we emphasize energy citizenship. But citizenship and energy citizens is a new concept. It was not even defined. So what we do in our project, we define this concept, and from the economic point of view, when you define the concept of energy citizens, then you have somehow changed the economic model, because economic model now, the capitalistic neoliberal model, market economy, give the space only for producers and consumers. So only these two actors can play the game of competitiveness and all this game to exist, and to, of course, create the demand supply rules, principles on the market. But when you define the citizens as an actor, this is really changing the game, you know, but we don't really consider it as a serious thing, a serious problem, because the economists which created the neoliberal economic model, they said that something like citizens doesn't exist, you know. So the citizens in our and meaning is they are consumers. So the main scene of our system, economic system, is that the system is reducing the concept of citizens. Us as a citizens is reducing to the role of consumers. So, and we accept it. And this is, so we accept this way of treating us, and we accept also the tools and different instruments which government and the market is using towards us. I mean, as a player on the market, you know. So we are treated as a consumer, but in public debate there is used the name of citizens. But really, when you really consider what does it mean, energy citizens, it's much more, you know. So nobody is talking about our rights and responsibilities, but is talking about tools and about profits and about the prices, and on this level is treating us. But so from the economic point of view, in our research, we try to emphasize these aspects and see that that we don't accept or we don't like, or we like to discuss with the concept when the consumers, the citizens are reduced, are limited to the concept of consumer. So the new aspect about the co-creation is that the co-creation for me is the co-creation with citizens, not only with consumers, and also that co-creation is more than participation, because in our cities, communities, sometimes we only are part of participation. The experts and scientists and specialists, they prepare the concepts, the strategies, the documents, and we are invited to participate. We are invited to discuss about the ready concept. But the co-creation, so this is our definition about the energy citizenship. But generally, we emphasize that there is a bigger concept than sorry, I just have to charge my computer. Okay, but I will. Okay, but this is the bigger concept than consumers. So I have to go faster because I don't have much time. But I like to emphasize few things. The life is changing, the politics is changing, and economy is changing, and we need the higher. I mean, we need to empower people, and we need to empower citizens. We need to give them space. We need to give them tools. And I like to really emphasize and make you aware which tools are proposed, which values are proposed, which place for the citizens is proposed. Is it place or responsibility or empowerment for consumer or for citizens? We should really ask for it and question it, because sometimes they treat us on the level of consumers, and we don't, and we accept it. Yeah? So, but from the point of view of social issues like huge energy transformation, we need more than aware consumers, and consumers which take on their shoulders energy transition. We need really the central role of citizens, but governments and European Union even doesn't really understand what does it mean when you put the citizens in the center of the policy, in the center of energy transition. We need the energy citizenship, and generally citizenship gives the legitimization of all the processes which are taken by business, by market, by governments. So we really need to invite citizens from the beginning of the process. From the moment when we decide about values, aims, about criteria, about financial tools and law and all these things. So we need to involve citizens in the beginning of the process. But reality of the municipalities and cities is not really like this. Yeah. So we are always invited when everything is ready, when experts from science, from the public sector, from somewhere, when the experts are preparing for us. So the concept of co-creation and citizens co-creation is equaling the expertise of scientists and experts, and is equalizing it with the expertise of citizens. And this is known in science as a citizen science. and we experience it in EC Square, but really it's very important also for the cities and municipalities to give the citizens, inhabitants, the expertise, which on the same level like experts, you know. So here I just write about Elinor Ostrom, is economist, one of the there was the first woman which get the Nobel Prize in economics, and she was really emphasizing the role of citizens and role of communities in sustainability and sustainable development and resources. So the citizens in co-creation can play different role, can be co-producer, co-governance, co-management, co-innovation, so different field of action of the citizens. Here I emphasize that co-creation is more than participation, but regularly in municipalities is making equal. So they change the names co-creation, participation, but in reality is many more participation than co-creation, and co-creation needs different approach, different tools, and different platforms to really make co-creation possible. So this is different roles. What's important that the problems which the governments are facing are really unusual. So we need unusual new systemic and complex approaches, and co-creation with citizens is such a tool. So we need to share responsibility with citizens, because when we share responsibility or we make citizens co-creating from the beginning, then citizens are the owner of the project. So the owner of the project means that I protect the project, I ask questions, I try to improve the project, I don't criticize only. But when you come and the project is ready, easily the easiest way is to criticize the project, not stand behind the project and protect it. And in the literature there is two approaches. This autocratic approach focus on the expertise of experts, and the other which really is giving the space for shareholders and for the knowledge, for the respect the expertise. And what's interesting in the paper I cite here is written that the public sector is currently undergoing a transformation from a legal body and service provider to an arena of co-creation. This is very interesting for me, because now we experience the public sector, local governments as a provider of services and of course leader of different social projects, but arena of co-creation is really interesting view for the municipalities to survive and to develop in future. So this is the slide with different roles of citizens in the co-creation. So from the beginning to the end, to the evaluation and so on. And what we need to make really, I know my time is over. What we need. So it's not easy to co-create, because co-creation takes more time. Co-creation needs certain conditions, certain tools, certain platforms, but we really gain much more than the cost we spend. Okay, some municipalities are ready for it. Here are the methods of co-creation. You know them. They help to really involve citizens from the beginning, even it takes time. And this is very interesting because I was this is the last slide about co-creating together, and sometimes the administration and municipalities don't believe that something extra happened when we co-create, and then authors are writing, it contains an almost unbelievable promise. We are really able to create something new right here on the ground. It's really possible to create structured process that will make creativity happen. We can answer yes to that, yes, with a new set of perspectives, people gathered to complete a specific task in the right environment you always get unexpected new results, always. So this is the promise that's when you co-create with people, always is the chance to get a new thing. So this is the summary about the co-creation, which creates the democratization, commitment, legitimization of action, sense of empowerment, building trust, sharing power and responsibility, improving the social legitimacy of decision making. So thank you very much for attention. I'm sorry I just took 3 minutes more. So I wait for questions if you like. So thank you.
Thank you, Bożena. Thank you. No worries. If you have any question for Bożena, she can take it now, or you can write it in the chat and we will address it later. I would pass now to our panel discussion. I think we're going to explore even further co-creation, different models of co-creation and experiences of co-creation. So we will first start with Wolfgang Heider from ZSI. He's a researcher and project manager at Social Innovation at the Center for Social Innovation in Vienna, where he has been working since October 2015. Currently, he's pursuing a PhD at the University of Utrecht, Copernicus Institute for Sustainable Development, in which he combines his expertise in the field of transformative innovation, multi-level governance, regional development, and sustainable transition. And Wolfgang also coordinates the Repeat project, which is co-organizing or co-creating our session with today, which aims to drive needs-based regional initiative policies and foster collaboration that accelerates sustainable energy transition. So he will present today the project and the different co-creation models and processes that took place within the Repeat project. Our second panelist for today is Rachel Tully from Extremadura's Energy Agency. She's responsible for the European project department at the AGENEX, where she's been working since June 2017. As one of Repeat's territorial partners, AGENEX has developed an energy transition lab to test responsible research and innovation policy experimentation in the region, resulting in a pilot project to promote energy communities in Extremadura. She will introduce today the co-creation process that took place in Extremadura and the barriers that were faced, together with the factors that facilitated the co-creation process there. So I would leave the floor to Wolfgang now. We can share your screen. I will stop sharing mine.
You should see my screen now. Yeah? Okay, great. Well, then thanks for the introduction, Benedetta, and also thanks for making it possible that we kind of team up on this occasion. I think it's actually a really good fit because already from the introduction or the kind of keynote from Bożena, I see a lot where our project, the Repeat project, kind of taps into or try to put aspects of these co-creation processes into practice in the energy transition sector. So the title of the presentation is more or less Transition Labs, Co-Creating the Energy Transition. And if you were paying attention to the slides, Living Labs was already mentioned as one of the tools for co-creation, and with the Transition Lab concept, we tried to tweak this a little bit, take a little bit of a different approach to Living Labs and implement them in a regional governance setting in 3 European regions. What we're going to do in this presentation is I want to introduce the Repeat project as such, kind of the background and how we set it up and what were our deliberations behind setting it up in the way we did. Then I want to explain the activities that make you understand what we actually did on the ground, and also kind of the background of the project. And then I want to reflect a bit on our approach to co-creation and what we learned from it. So as you've already seen, there are quite different approaches to how you can set up co-creation in different sectors and different areas. And yeah, and then at the end, I would also try to share some initial learnings from our side, and then gladly hand the word over to Rachel, who can then give you the practice perspective from a regional transition lab, and tell you maybe yeah, a bit more even about the challenges than I do as the coordinator. Okay, so as an introduction, Repeat project is a project that sets up transition labs in 3 regions in the European Union, in Extremadura in Spain, and the Highlands and Islands in Scotland, and in Ostrobothnia in Finland. And we're building on the concepts of responsible research and innovation, co-creation, transformative innovation, and place-based and context-sensitive innovation policy. And we're conducting, yeah, more or less policy experimentation for bringing these concepts together and contributing to a sustainable, just and inclusive transition pathway in these regions, but actually through our project also beyond, because we have also a replication scheme for our approach built into the project. So who are we? So you saw at the beginning, the picture on the slide was from our project meeting in Vasa in Finland. In our team, we have different types of partners in our consortium. It's a Horizon 2020 funded project, so I guess you all are familiar with the program as such, but we tried to set it up really as a combination between more conceptual partners, so partners that kind of understand how co-creation processes work, how these conceptual backgrounds that I mentioned work, and how we can design processes in a regional scale to be effective and to be in line with the principles that, you know, are characteristic of co-creation, are characteristic of responsible research and innovation. So for example, we have partners from Italy, knowledge and innovation. We have University of Leiden from the Netherlands, also University of Vasa, and not at least ZSI as a coordinator. But we also have a quite good grounding in our regions. So we have at least 2 partners from each regions, from the policy side or the governance side of energy transition, or also companies that work with technological aspects of energy transition, and intermediaries, business accelerators that are kind of there to you know, get products to the market. And one of these partners is here today, as introduced before, Rachel Tully from the Energy Agency in Extremadura, and who will give you an insight into how they worked. And not last but not least, also our network partner, Erin, which has the groundedness in different European regions and brings together or connects regional partners with EU-level policy discourses. Well, that's just a slide to show, okay, at the beginning of the project, it was quite a baffling situation. You have so many things you have to put together in answering a call, in writing a project. You should refer and you should kind of find ways to address the sustainable development goals, but you need to do them in a territorial setting, as this is also a coordination and support action. So we really have to be regionally focused. And we also have to do it with because this was part of the SWAS project scheme, which some of you might know. So it was science with and for society. So the European Commission put a specific effort in bringing society into our research and bringing society in our transition systems, in our governance systems of transition. And this was kind of the background that led us to come up with this transition lab idea. Yeah, and so what is this transition lab idea? This transition lab idea is basically an approach to try to redistribute power to the people. So this is a quite famous phrase coined by Jenny Stevens, which is one of the leading scholars on the concept of energy democracy. So how can we create energy transition that is not only moving us towards ecological sustainability, but also that takes into account social and democratic aspects and is inclusive and socially just. So to do that, we tapped into different discourses I'm not gonna go into that because it's not so important, but transformative innovation, RI, MLP, and try to come up with a frame that allows us to combine these different aspects and these different like process aspects and dimensions, such as the process dimensions defined by the responsible research and innovation concept, and yeah, put it into a concept for implementing a project on a regional scale. And that's where we came up with the transition lab, which also actually refers to what the speaker before mentioned on like the public sector transformations with transformation arenas, because transition labs are also grounded a bit on the concept of transition arenas, which is basically bringing stakeholders in an area together to collaboratively work on future pathways for change. So we took that as a starting point. We said, okay, we're going to do a 3-step approach to implement it in the regions with a series of workshops, a series of activities that will allow to bring good representation of all stakeholders that have a stake in the energy transition together. So we use the quintuple helix model, which to the usually known dimensions of industry, academia, government, and civil society also adds the environment as a dimension having stake in energy transition. And obviously the environment as such is not easy to represent, but is represented in our project through, for example, advocacy associations that are working on environmental protection. So this is kind of you see kind of the main points and phrases and terms that are important and that shape our transition lab. So it's about the RRI criteria, the participation, the co-creation, inclusion, reflexivity, anticipation. And with this whole process, we want to kind of provide directionality, coordination, and also reflexivity in an energy ecosystem, in an energy R&I ecosystem. So in the ecosystem that shapes innovation and more or less progress or development in an energy sector in a specific region. And so how, well, translated that to maybe like a process perspective, just to give you a glimpse of that. It started all with the setup of the transition labs, so establishing working groups in the regions led by our regional partners, and then a quite lengthy process, co-creation process with all stakeholders identified and relevant in the area for building a common vision on energy transition, defining clear steps to achieve that vision, and then identifying also the most pressing needs in this kind of identified transition pathway. And based on these identified needs in a co-creative identified in a co-creative process, we launched also a call for energy solutions. So we actually wanted to gain or to fund with like 50,000 euros per region energy innovation solutions that contributed to solving some of the most pressing needs on the transition pathways by the regions identified in this co-creative setting. And then, so this was kind of the first part of the co-creation phase. So the development of the needs and of the vision, how do we come together and what are the aims we are working for. And then the second part of the co-creation is actually the creation of concrete energy solutions. So there was the call, we awarded 3 or actually 4 initiatives or projects with money to develop this energy solution, and this development of the energy solution is now also implemented in a co-creative setting. So under continuous reflection and collaboration with the stakeholders that have already been participating in the transition lab. So this gives you already a bit the 2 sides of co-creation in the project. So I'm actually running a bit ahead of me now, because that's also kind of the next slide that introduces kind of our 2 co-creation dimensions that we're working in. So on the one side, we're trying to implement co-creative approaches in the governance frame, in the transition lab frame, in the R&I ecosystem. So kind of changing how research and innovation priorities are developed and set in a region. So we bring the stakeholders together, the quintuple helix, as I've mentioned, including citizens, but mostly citizens in formed together or put together already in interests group, because that's one of the main challenges. Also get later to that, to really bring the citizens on board in such processes. And yeah, kind of to try to make the voices that are usually not heard in this priority and policy setting heard, and to give some leverage to them in policy making. And yeah, then jointly elaborate these needs, vision, strategies that I have mentioned already. And yeah, by this we are kind of contributing to a grounded and needs-oriented energy transition. So this is all on a regional basis. This is really getting the people on board in the process of transforming energy systems. And then we have the second layer of co-creation with the actual innovation solution creation. So referring also a bit to what Bożena mentioned in terms of, well, co-creation as a tool also coming from business. Actually, with us there, it's not really business, because our solution providers are, again, civil society organizations, as for example in the case of Extremadura, which you will hear later about, which is actually forming an energy community that is, brought to life in a co-creation process. And this process of co-creation allows us to tie these innovation solutions to the vision that we have developed in the governance, in the transition lab, and to the pathways that we have developed in the transition lab, and so kind of provide directionality for change in a region, and links it then to obviously the needs and values of the region. So this also contributes to deliver solutions that are actually accepted and implemented by society and by the citizens of a territory. This again is just another slide more detailed about what I've already explained with the different phases. So first, setting up of the transition lab, then the experimentation, the vision, backcasting, different tools, different methods have been applied in these transition labs in each region to get to these visions and to these goals. And then the third phase of really implementing or developing a concrete energy innovation solution. And I see that I'm running already a bit out of time. So yeah, this is just an insight from the transition labs and how, from in this case the Ostrobotnian region, and how they defined their vision and their backcasting and their strategy plan to be implemented and then addressed by the energy innovation solutions. I will not go into detail now. If there are questions to it, I can get to it. And then in the co-creation of the energy solutions, of the energy innovations, we now have 3 different projects running, pilots running. In case of Extremadura, you will hear more about it in a bit on the energy community. And this co-creation process on the energy solution is also set up in different phases. First, of course, the setup and the definition of co-creation teams, and steering the process, but also defining kind of some milestones and some meeting schedules, like also very practical things to a certain extent, also leaving it open for adaptations and changes to be made. Then the implementation and the delivery of the actual solution. Okay, so last few slides, a bit over time, but I'll just quickly go through it. The learnings, because they were also already a bit mentioned by the speaker before. So co-creation processes, they need also some kind of structure, and I really like the point at the end. Okay, how can you come up with a process that enables creativity, and how much can you come up with it together? So in our experience, still needs some roles and responsibilities in the process. It still needs expertise. I was already mentioned. It needs the colloquial knowledge of the people, but it also needs the expertise of the people that are working on the technical side, and they need to be brought in different phases, so to say, of the co-creation process. And this needs to be kind of, steered to some extent. And also expectations are necessary, because such processes, they are time demanding, and they're like the people actually, they put their heart in it. So it needs to be kind of also, manageable. And and also how you communicate about this as a facilitator of a co-creation process is quite important, that you be clear and that you have, idea also of what this co-creation process looks like. And this translates obviously then to the don'ts of the co-creation process that we have elaborated, which, not being too loose, also like keeping it open and flexible and allowing for creative processes, but also, being too open doesn't really help in terms of getting things forward. And yeah, also mislabeling is difficult. Not everything is maybe a co-creation approach that is labeled as a co-creation approach. And Bożena already mentioned different varieties of aspects of co-creation, co-design, co-innovation, whatsoever. And yeah, also don't expect too much from the beginning. And then the drivers and barriers, they are more or less, already have been mentioned, so I will not go too much into it. Co-creation process creates legitimacy also for governance and policy actors. There is also interest and demand in co-creation, both from bottom up and top down. And it's also a way of using local knowledge and resources. There are obviously always barriers. Such a process is often very time and capital consuming. The rigidness of the political system often is very much opposed to such openness of processes in co-creation, and there are a lot of power asymmetries that are touched when you open up governance systems to a co-creation process. So a lot of incumbents are kind of forced to give away power that they're sitting on, and that's often obviously quite an issue. So yeah, final thoughts or my main messages from my point of view in the experience from the project. There are many challenges to co-creation processes, and they manifest in different ways, and they manifest differently in different settings. And it's not a straightforward process. It's always an iteration. It's always adaptive, and it's navigating also a lot of pitfalls that there are there. And it's obviously beneficial to get all perspectives on board, but it's also often useful not to get all perspectives all the time to all aspects, because then that also kind of stalls the process sometimes. And in general, co-creation is not a one-size-fits-all process, and needs to adapt to regional aspects and regional conditions. Yeah, and now maybe to Rachel and how we did it, and a short last pointer to our repeat toolbox, because we've mentioned or heard before also that we need the necessary tools for co-creation. We have developed something on that is also accessible via our webpage, where we have quite a nice set of tools that you can use in co-creation processes in the energy sector, but also beyond. So yeah, thanks for.
Thank you a lot, Wolfgang.
Sorry for being a bit over time.
It's fine. If you have any question, maybe we can keep it for later after Rachel's presentation, so that they can address it together. I would then leave the floor to Rachel so that we can learn more about the process in Extremadura. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction, and hello everyone. As Wolfgang was saying, I represent the energy agency in Extremadura, so I'm one of the regional partners that took part in this repeat project. Yeah, we have 2 different partners in the region that have been participating in the project. So this way we cover both aspects of energy from AGENEX and science and technology and innovation from Fundefit. So the idea of setting up this energy lab was to address the main challenges we have in the region in the energy sector, and allow us to test innovative solutions following the guidelines given by the coordinator and by the established, let's say, in the project initially. We developed a few different elements in the region, and we analyzed the different conditions we had regarding the energy system, because indeed Extremadura has a huge potential for renewable energy. We play a key role at national level due to the high renewable production we have in the region, but somehow it was all following a system and regulations that came from above, in which, as we have been mentioning this morning, citizens didn't have a say. So we identified the existing policies we have in the region, as I was saying, all following the same kind of pathway. And we identified the stakeholders. And of course, you can see there, most of them came from the public sector. So in the first session, after identifying and mapping what was already in the territorial context, a few priorities came up, mainly focusing on the importance of energy storage, the need of phasing out the nuclear power plant we have in Extremadura. There was some concerns regarding the use of land for too much energy and not enough agriculture and so on. And at the same time as the priorities, we analyzed the different opportunities for the research and development sector. And as well, they all focused around energy. So energy efficiency, energy and agro-industry, smart energy, and so on. So in this initial phase, basically the learnings were that we had a lot of information gathered already. So we had to take advantage of it. And that information that wasn't available, it was important to gather it from the workshops we organized within the lab, because it was a way to hear different voices that weren't usually involved in the energy sector. It was a bit hard not to engage the stakeholders, but to maintain them committed during the entire process. And one benefit, or one, let's say, advantage we had in this case was the possibility to grant the funding of a solution. So in a way that I know it isn't always possible, but it did help a lot with the engagement. So once we started the experimentation phase, the first step was to define jointly the vision. When we speak about common vision, it's important to have as many participants as possible from the different quintuple helix group Wolfgang was explaining before, and to use tools that would allow everyone to participate in the same way. In our case, we always use the mural one. So after everyone expressed their opinion and the view on what they would like to see in the energy system in Extremadura in 2040, it resulted in a joint vision that included, obviously, to be independent and renewable, but there was a high demand for the needs of energy communities. As I was saying before, the laws were not made for energy communities, but rather for large-scale development renewable plants. So there was a request for change in this sense, to give citizens the voice, to give them to make them more responsible and more active in the energy system, always taking into account the environment and allowing a sustainable development in the region. So once this vision was approved by everyone and it was voted during the process, we had to identify the different targets we had to achieve to get or to reach this vision. In our case, again, it was all focused around citizens, to have a high percentage of them producing their own energy, to be active in the system, and as well to have to encourage in a way, or to have a regulation that allows the establishment of new energy communities, having at least one per municipality by 2030. Based on these two targets, which I insist from all of the ones that came out throughout the workshop, those were voted as the most relevant or the most urgent to meet. And taking into account the regional context and the mapping activities we developed at the beginning of the lab, all of the participants were asked to identify the actions that would be needed to take place in the region to reach those targets, and then to place them in order based on the relevance, the feasibility, and the time when they should be taking place. All of that resulted in different transition pathways that again were reviewed. They were analyzed to see the potential barriers, drivers that could affect each pathway, and the innovation needs that had to follow the pathways and that maybe weren't still totally addressed in the region. From all of the different innovation needs, we were selecting. So there was like a first phase of selection, which aren't so relevant or which are maybe needed, but then it's not feasible within the project and so on. So from the most relevant needs, we voted. And that was let's say the result of the need was the one that would establish the third phase, which was the call for proposals. So from this experimental phase, before going more into the need, we did gather that participation was very, very important, because in some workshops it was a bit unbalanced, and that can cause some biased results. The process, as has already been mentioned as well, isn't that easy to follow. So it needs a lot of good guidance. In some cases, it was easier to divide the tasks and address them separately to make it more simple, and then like put all the results together again. Again, insist on the common. Every time we speak about the common vision and the common change targets and the common needs selection, it's very important to have a voting process to make sure that the results are democratic and they have been developed in this collaborative way. And then again, as well, just like from a more logical point of view, the use of tools to try and maintain always the same ones, because in our case, we use Mural, and still after several workshops, not everyone was available to use them. So as well, I would recommend to have a plan B. And then go into the last phase of our journey, we would the sustainability and monitoring. It includes the call for solutions that was launched in September 2020 from the needs that we thought were relevant in the region to be able to reach the vision we want to see in the future. We summarized it in the need to increase general knowledge in energy issues, not from the academia, not from the technicians, and not from the public government, but like general from citizens, SMEs, everyone that lives in the region, to allow the collaboration between these different actors that for once have been participating in the process. They have been able to give their opinions so that they can still have a space where they can work together and promote new energy solutions for the benefits of society. With this definition and a few, of course, more conditions, we received 7 applications, from which of them 1 was rejected to it was not eligible following the call conditions. From the other 6, they were evaluated by different experts in the area, and we elaborated a ranking list. So the first one in the list was a proposal received by Enverde. It's the first energy cooperative that's been established in Extremadura, and they have a lot of commitment and a lot of will, but they were lacking resources. So this was a good opportunity for them to be able to develop the work a lot better. The main objective is to promote new energy communities in the region. Until then, there were not any. In a way to change the habits, the patterns, how the energy model, the energy system works, and always looking for a positive impact from a social, economic, of course, but environmental point of view. Given our region that's very, very large, very, very low populated, and with over 400 municipalities, there's 2 pillars in this solution that were key to be able to reach the objectives, which is to establish a network of energy community promoters that will allow to reach all the territory, and to have an online application that will allow training courses. There's a resources available, possibility to participate in workshops, communicate between different actors, and overall allow and encourage the promotion of new energy communities. And in this last phase, the learnings were basically that in our case, it was very favorable that we had this possibility to fund with EU funds. But even in other cases, if the resources are limited, and you have only to choose one solution, the most important for us was the valuable information we had gathered throughout the entire process. So even the solution is maybe just focused on one specific need, all of this information is already due to the public character of both entities, from the energy side and from the innovation side, that we both belong to the regional governments. We have a lot of valuable information to give to the policymakers in the future. So that would be our maybe takeaway. And I'm sorry I went too fast, but I thought I think I was just in time. So in case you have any questions or you want me to go into more detail in one of the aspects, I'm available.
Thank you, Rachel. That was really, really interesting. If you have any question for Rachel or Wolfgang or about the project and its labs, feel free to do it now, or you can write it in the chat and they will address it in the meantime. Also, our third panelist for today, Julia Rokicka, joined us. So I would leave the floor to Julia, who's a political scientist by education. She worked at the European Parliament and the European Committee of Regions. Julia, you can share your screen in the meantime if you want.
Actually, I don't have any slides,
okay.
so no need of screen sharing.
Okay. Thank you. And Julia is the co-founder and board member of Biorecycling Association, ET business analyst, and the leader of the Sustainable Development Network at the Bank Eco Educator, and representative of the Trash Hero organization in Wrocław. And she's here today to present us the housing cooperative Wrocław South experience with co-creation and the co-creation model that is implemented in the housing cooperative. Okay, Julia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Benedetta. First of all, thank you very much for invitation for that meeting. I'm really happy to meet in this forum and exchange those best practices and ideas. And big thank you for invitation again. So I'm a resident of this housing cooperative Wrocław South since many years actually, but I became active here since a couple of years. I would say 2018 I became like much more active in this local community here in the housing cooperative. I also have to say, I also don't have slides because I'm not like official representative of the cooperative. So I will be speaking more from the perspective of the resident, active resident who is living in the buildings where we had all those changes relating to energy transition to renewables and all this cooperation between residents. So basically, I don't know if in other countries it is popular, these kind of let's say structure like housing cooperative or commune where citizens where inhabitants or residents that are the owners of the apartments, they have a voice to decide on some common decisions related to how it will how this residential area will develop in the future. I'm not sure if it's the same in your countries, but in Poland, just to give you a little intro, in the past, there was really popular kind of like local activism and local governance on a really low level that even people that are just owners of the apartments could have some voice in the decision-making process of development of the residential area. So here this concept is working quite well. And this co-deciding, or rather voting, as some of you also, like Rachel and Wolfgang were saying in their presentations, that was always present here. I have to say that I was not part of the initial stage of this project of the energy transition, so I can just tell you about the phases on the next levels, let's say. But I know that the board of the commune involved at the beginning some kind of local leaders that could help to reach other groups of people and talk with them about the solutions that they were planning to implement. And this is
Julia, I
Yes?
would like that you explain how huge is the project, how huge is
Yes.
the cooperative, and because it will give a picture about this scale of co-creation.
Oh yeah, this is really a huge project. It's one of the biggest commune in Wrocław, actually. I don't know exactly how many members there are, but I can tell you how many participated in the meetings, in like a general meetings where we had the chance to vote on these projects. So it was more than 1,000 people. But the commune in Wrocław has like 30-something buildings, huge residential buildings. And maybe it's important to mention that the average age of the residents and owners of the apartments, it's actually it's I would say above 50 for sure. Most of the owners are elderly people still, so it's really challenging to reach these kind of groups of people. So that's why at the beginning they identified some local opinion leaders, just to be able to reach others and tell them about those innovative ideas, because I don't know if it's everywhere like that, but in Poland elderly people are not always so open for new ideas, especially if it involves some costs, right? So they had to convince that they are taking loans from the European Union funds, and that also that the fund that we pay with our bills, that it will all create a possibility for a saving in the future. So it's not only like ecological project, but also brings those people who also often live in kind of poverty a chance to save money. The reduction of bills is really a real thing that happened here. But coming back also to the process, how it started. So those opinion leaders, local opinion leaders, were meeting with other residents of their buildings and just discussing what are the plans. And the plans were to get the loan for this transformation of installing solar panels and heat pumps in the buildings, and this automated system that would really help to save money and also reduce the CO2 emissions, and also bring citizens back together and help to cooperate. So that worked. I think the initial stage worked really well, and until pandemic time, the decision making processes were really nice. I told you about those big grouping where we could vote, and the meeting of those more than 1,000 people lasted like more than 8 hours. So really everybody who wanted to speak, ask questions, they had a chance to do it. And there were presentations on the plans, so kind of vision of the board of the commune, how to implement this project. It was involving all the benefits, all the costs, all the financial situation of our commune. It's a big commune, which is, I think, in this sense also a benefit, because this kind of project was possible. I have to say that to be able to even get the loan from the European funds for such a big project, it's really it's easier when it's a big commune. It's just easier. But then they were presenting all the financial data, all the risks, and all the ideas, how the project will evolve along the years, right? Because it's not just one step, for example, installing solar panels, it's just many steps on the way. And I have to say that before pandemic, it was working very well, the cooperation, because they were organizing those huge meetings and votings. During the pandemic, it was not possible, obviously. And also they didn't have tools to actually reach everybody. There is the mobile application, which is not working, maybe like ideally. I have tested it and I work in IT, as you mentioned. So for me, it's like not a perfect solution. But they were trying to reach us somehow. And before the pandemic, much information was shared during the meetings, general meetings, and to all of the apartment owners. But then I would say, because you were mentioning in your presentations that it was more like really co-creation process with the citizens. So here I would say what I observed was more like including citizens to convince also others for the solutions that were kind of like already there. There was a plan, there was a vision. So I don't think we had such a big like possibility for a co-creation. But now, thanks to University of Economics, we have a big chance to cooperate again, because I can see a lot of initiative from Bożena and her team to actually bring us together, and we participate in the workshops that are organized from time to time, and we can brainstorm again some ideas how to run those energy communities. It's important also to mention that in Polish law, energy communities are not that supported yet. We are still waiting for it. So it's not that we can start it immediately, but it's great that these steps that, for example, the University of Economics is doing these steps to help us to facilitate the process of starting such communities once we are able to do that. And for the cooperation in these projects, I would say in the commune, people were really open to hear our voices in the past, and maybe they were more proactive in the communication. But since some time, unfortunately, it has changed a bit. So we could see much less openness to ideas from us residents. Maybe less time from the board of the commune. And also we can see that somehow this model is not working as well as it was in the past. We don't know what has changed. We still have a lot of initiative, and we want to give ideas and support the commune in many ways, but then it became a bit like one way. So I hope with the help of the University of Economics and all these meetings that they are initiating, I hope we will be able to again be more in a co-creation phase. Okay. I don't know if you have maybe any questions or you want to leave them for later. I could talk more and more, but I don't know if it's really the goal. So maybe let's try to have more discussion.
Thank you, Julia. It was really interesting. There's actually a question from Wolfgang asking if there's any possibility for the residents to get into the community or board that is organizing that is managing, I think, the commune, or is it rather organized top-down in this sense?
Yeah, so this is a very good question, because in the past, along with this meeting where we had all the presentations about financials and planning and vision, we had a chance to vote for the board members, and for just to select some active citizens. And since a couple of years, we didn't have that meeting anymore. And I'm thinking that it should happen, especially now because we don't have those pandemic rules anymore. I know that these kind of meetings cost a lot, because imagine, renting such a huge room for more than 1,000 people. It's a big cost. However, I think it's really important to try to have more, change, and also enable people who are active just to participate in this board. What I experienced when I had some ideas in the past, it's not now. I told you that something changed, but in the past, when there were some ideas, sometimes they were inviting to the meetings, like task force meeting, let's say, how to initiate certain changes. But a while ago, I observed that it's more like one way, like, you give us ideas, you work, but then not really like a partnership cooperation. And I think the challenge, and I told Piotr about it once, is probably also the age group, that maybe it's difficult to approach them with technology. So I think our commune needs to find ways to communicate with various members. On the other hand, when I was on this board, on this huge general meetings with so many participants, I saw only a few young people. So I think the commune really has a lot to understand and find ways to communicate with various groups of people when it comes to age and, technology capacity. Yeah, so these are the challenges at the moment. But if something that I said is unclear, also please ask questions. I will try to explain, because I think the system is maybe different than other countries.
I don't know if anyone has questions. There's another point from Wolfgang, which is if the housing, is it considered public, communal housing, or private?
This is another really good question, because we have two types of, even three types of ownership of the apartments here. So in the past, in Poland, in such buildings of the communes, people had something like shared ownership. So they had the right to use the apartment, but they didn't have the full voting right for everything. And then now in Poland, there is this tendency to actually change this into full ownership and the right to vote and things. So in our buildings, it's different types of ownership. It could be mixed. It could be partially ownership, partial ownership, or full ownership. I turned my partial ownership into full ownership, so I could have the full voting rights. But many people don't even know. Sometimes they like I talk with my neighbors, and sometimes they are asking me why they didn't receive some mail with voting on a specific thing, for example, changes on the balconies. And I ask them what is their ownership right, and they explain to me, oh, it's this partial ownership. So then they don't have full voting right. So I think it's another challenge, that maybe some people are excluded and they don't even know why they don't get the voting right.
Yeah, we actually had a session on housing, so housing barriers and enablers of energy citizenship in last June, and the legal aspect of how the regulation then change how people can and have the opportunity to get involved in this case, not only energy, but mainly in energy decisions or energy initiatives is really a barrier to energy citizenship, and also to the emergence then of energy communities or energy initiatives in general. I would have a question for all of you, for all the panelists, because now Julia and also before Rachel mentioned the participation factor, how it is hard to reach to certain citizens, mainly to those groups of or communities that are marginalized and that are victims of those marginalization processes. With how to reach out to those communities, and which can be the factors that can facilitate building trust and reaching out to the communities and those individuals? Or if you have any experience in your cases or in your projects with those dynamics.
I can say that in our case, we involve them through nonprofit organizations and associations. So in a way, they represent the interests of these groups of people, but many different associations of something that may not even be related to energy, but still, you know, that the members of those associations also represent a part of society that has to be heard. And a lot of nonprofit organizations as well were joining the meetings.
So using like brokers and people that connect the citizens, yes.
Yeah, because it's obvious you can't involve everyone, and there's, I mean, a lot of different groups. So the same as we had, for instance, in our region, we have professional associations that represents maybe the interests of architects. So they have, let's say, the capacity to speak for all of that sector. So we try to find different associations that could represent installers, architects, social housing, for instance. We do have a lot of public social housing as well, and you know that the interest of that association is going to be focused on maybe kind of vulnerable or energy poverty.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think
it's a really good question, and it's like it always depends also where you work in, because like for this transition lab setting that we had, it's really like this policy governance setting where you try to make people's voices heard, but it's really difficult to get citizens as individuals on board because there's quite like complex and long processes. So it's in our experience good to, as Rachel explained, to have this kind of interest group or associations that kind of have some kind of critical mass of participants and also knowledge that they can do, but that shouldn't excuse us from trying to also reach out to actual individuals. And then what Julia like described in her approach, that's like, this is a very concrete, tangible implementation then that tackles that touches the lives of people. So then it's also maybe easier to get them on board, but still such a participation process then is quite difficult. And also participation and voting, that's also good, but co-creation is also, there are elements of consensus building, and is it just voting, and how is this all set up? So there are a lot of challenges, and honestly, the only then we are talking about EU projects. What are we doing in EU projects with certain communities and stakeholders and people? So reaching out from such projects to citizens and getting them involved has been always a challenge, and really you need to put a lot of resources into that. And also sometimes what helps is actually remuneration, like people like spending their time, citizens, after their work, for example, some form of maybe financial or some other form that kind of pays for that effort.
I also think that the length of Horizon 2020 or in general European programs do not support a long-term, I mean, the fact that they are 2 to 3 years or maximum does not allow for long and continuous engagement. So after the 3 years, let's say, of the project, it's hard then to keep the community activated and to keep them motivated. Also, if there's not a shared responsibility of who is responsible to keep up with this process and to maintain the promises that were made or the plans that were made. So it's hard, yes.
Yeah.
I think from my perspective, I mentioned that at the beginning, but there should be definitely some understanding of what are the specific age groups, and then finding the right channels, maybe individual channels even to each of these groups. But important will be to involve from each group somebody. So we have like various perspectives, and we also bring people together. So I believe, like, for example, our commune, I think what they could do, for example, they have a lot of buildings and some spaces. So maybe they could share a space that people could just come and meet and discuss what's happening in our commune, and how they could be informed about this. Could be different ways for, again, different age groups. So it could be posters for, you know, elderly people. It could be letters just to the mailboxes. It could be channels like, I think what is missing, we have like a forum of citizens, but it's mostly people that are active, that see some problems that are, you know, unresolved in our area, and they are really active on some Facebook groups. But we are missing something like a forum for many, you know, owners of the apartments that are maybe want to cooperate on various projects. I think door to door usually works well when it comes to like elderly people. Of course, in Poland we also have these risks that they are maybe afraid because they could be robbed by somebody. You know, there's a lot of these kind of problems. But if there is somebody from administration coming, for example, I think they would have trust. So maybe they should more, you know, come to people and involve them and explain what is what's happening, what is their right. Maybe they have some right to vote. So really more tailored communication, and some involvement of technologies, maybe more, you know, into forums, groups, and areas for people to cooperate that would be promoted, where they can meet and discuss all those things. And maybe there could be one person from administration that would explain to those citizens what's happening, you know, what is the progress, and just gather feedback also. I think gathering feedback is extremely important, and it's usually missing this second way of, you know, communication, not only top down, as I think Wolfgang said. I think, and the remuneration that you said, I think, Benedetta, right?
No, Wolfgang mentioned
Wolfgang,
it.
sorry.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's super important, and especially especially elderly people would get involved, because, as I mentioned, there is big poverty. I think it's growing in Poland, and I can see it from also in my neighbors, that I organized garage sale actually at the University of Economics, because they are so supportive, and that was also to involve some of the members of our commune, because they are living nearby, and that is just to promote circular economy, like selling things from home, but also for elderly people to maybe earn a little bit from some things that they would not sell on websites or mobile applications, because they are not so involved in the technologies. But these kind of areas where people can meet, also, for example, at the university, that elderly people don't have to go far. They can sell something, they can earn something, even small amounts of money. I think that would be very helpful. I agree.
Another question related to I think we can skip the breakout groups, because we are a small group anyway, so keep the discussion here, maybe make it a bit shorter. But a question related to this economic aspect of co-creation, related to how can the co-creation then foster also the collaboration with the private sector, and maybe redirect funds or financial resources to those kind of community energy initiatives, or more informal initiatives, rather than big energy companies. So did you see that, or how did you approach that in your projects or initiatives?
Yeah, maybe maybe I add something. You know, of course, redirecting the funds is always good. You know, and I think generally is that citizens and consumers cannot shouldn't be treated as a business, you know, entities. So we have to adjust the tools for communities, for small groups, and for small cooperatives. And yeah, and of course, the idea of the citizens and the rights of citizens automatically is pulling the concept of the state. Yeah, so the state and citizens are together, you know, so the state has to provide condition for citizens. If you think about citizens, not about the consumers, because on the from the point of view of consumers, they will play on the market, you know, and they don't need somehow guidelines of state. But when we really emphasize the role of citizens, then we really need an activity of the state, creating a law, creating accounts, supporting, creating platforms, groups, and so on, which really empower citizens and which will really create the tools and instruments dedicated for citizens. If for organized citizens or less organized and smaller or bigger groups. So I think we have the because we reduce everything to the consumer, so it thinks this consumer way about the tools, you know. So consumer will be involved only if it's profitable for him or if he will save some money. But it's stupid, you know, because research are showing that the citizens completely believe in different concept of energy. For them, the energy is the public good, common good. They have to have rights for the good quality energy, and then they treat energy as a resource, natural resource, as a social necessity. So it means energy justice, and some other aspects of even the public good or common good, which should be fully financed by state. Yeah. So this is completely different tools, different thinking, and much broader criteria and perspective to treat the energy. But we like to kind of like narrow this concept to the consumer, and we think that consumer are only thinking about the financial and profit aspects of involving in projects, you know. So then we prepare the tools according to our diagnosis, to our vision, you know. If we treat them as a consumer, so we propose them only financial profits or savings, not others, you know. So I think it really needs the thinking what is the effective tools for the concept of citizens.
Thank you, Bożena. Yes, I agree. I don't know if there's any other, if someone wants to add something.
Yeah,
Wolfgang,
maybe
yeah.
just a perspective from our process. I think it was really nice to see that this whole co-creation that we tried to do in the transition labs, where we tried to bring on board these different perspectives, it kind of then also resulted in call for solutions that were, you know, again, in line with the co-creation spirit and with the giving power to the community spirit, like the energy community development in Extremadura. I mean, certainly also partly because, you know, there's a limited fund, 50,000 euros. You're not going to be able to develop a big technological innovation solution for any of the needs, but still, the process, you know, for example, in Extremadura also had quite technical needs or change targets in there. So, and then but the decision was also to go for an energy community. So I kind of like, that's a good, like, because you spoke of, you know, redirecting also funds, and that shows, and this process, in my opinion, then gives also leverage to policymakers or to people in the political and administrative system in a bigger sense to push or to push towards this you know, energy democratization, or so, to say, okay, there are people and groups interested, and they, you know, they can be involved in the process, and the process makes sense and is legit and legitimate, and you know, we can follow up on it and we can set actions on it if there is a certain amount of funding. So I think that's something that's, for my opinion, worked nicely in our transition labs, and yeah.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Yes, that's, I think, really important, and that's also a point in co-creation, like that it provides flexible and also adaptable framework that then you can adjust better to different needs and different processes that can come up in it's adjustable. So it was seen in the case of Extremadura. I don't know if Julia has something to add about this, or if someone has any other question.
I just wanted to mention that in social sciences, there is a research, I don't remember the name of the woman, I think they made the research that 3.5 percentage points of involved citizens or people of group are making a change. So only 3.5% of the population of the group of, it was the climate strike, the youth climate strike used this research. So 3.5% of different communities and different groups and municipalities and even cooperatives and so on, they make a change, you know. So we should emphasize it because we like to activate people, but we really need a group of active people which are representing the certain communities, cooperatives, citizens. We don't need really to involve everybody, you know, and to provide all these conditions for I mean, happy and unhappy, satisfied or not satisfied people in energy transition. So maybe to get aware that only small group is making a change, then we work with people we have, you know, with these active people participating, coming, voluntary, and work with them, take care of them, give them tools, support them with some money, and see the change, you know, which will grow like snowball, you know, and don't waste the time for complaining that's not everybody are active, you know. It will be like this, you know. So we make change with the people which are on the board, you know, and try to open it, and the normal regular people, the small percentage of them will by example influence the others.
Thank you, Bożena. That's really nice message.
And then again, just if I may add, at least in our experience, in some cases, maybe the need of funding is not the main problem. So in line with what Bożena was saying, we've been for the last couple of years implementing a project that focuses on renovation and multifamily housing. So basically, as we've been speaking, the most important part was to find a couple of neighbors or three in the block of flats that were willing to explain all of the different aspects, financial, economic, the savings, what it involves, what it doesn't. With the recent amount of EU funding we've received in Spain, there's a lot of money available for grants. I mean, I'm not sure if they have been designed in the best way, because some people prefer to receive it upfront, others prefer like tax benefits throughout the following, I don't know, many years. So that's something that's just been decided from above, and we've had to adjust it, but the beneficiaries have. So before it was focused on municipalities, SMEs and citizens, and now it includes the figure of energy community. So if you're established as an energy community, you can benefit from the grant in order to install, I don't know, self-consumption, like in a shared scheme for the entire building and stuff like that. But in our case, it's more the change in the minds and convincing and having all of the members like committed to the change, rather than having a percentage funded through any public support scheme.
Thank you a lot, Rachel. I don't know.
Maybe one thing from me, because I really agree with Bożena when it comes to how citizens are defined. Not you know, not consumers anymore, but maybe also like, you know, active participants and part of the system. So the mindset maybe needs to change on the, so it's not top down. I think it's always visible, this top down approach, but more like partnership.
I think it connects also to the role that like energy as a topic, a lot of people feel like they don't have the knowledge or the skills or the resources to participate, while there should be a more clear communication, more strategies to reach out to those people, and also like a different approach in the how citizens are seen and individuals in general are seen, and the role that they can play in energy transition and with the actions in the that's exactly the definition of energy citizenship. So there's no need to for big and to have all the qualities and all the knowledge and all the skills, because it's just like the role that we can have in shaping the energy transition and making it also for us. So yes, I agree. If there are no other questions or points, maybe we can close the session a bit earlier.